Let's Talk Tunnelling is produced by XRJV and proudly sponsored by DC Adams Group, Why Safety Matters.
So from there, Andy, you ended up over WA, is that right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I ended up with, I had a job back here in New Zealand with John Owers. He was doing the, up north there doing a tunnel on the motorway.
The oil job,
road.
Yeah,
Puhoi job.
Puhoi, yeah, righto.
Puhoi job, yeah. And so I'd rung John up, and because I had a New Zealand A-grade tunnel manager's ticket, he said, yeah, no, that's all good, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I got a call from Perth, and one of the guys says, we've got a position over here, do you want to come over? And so I weighed up the options, and I'd never done an EPB tunnel before. So I opted to go to Perth, so moved over there and worked with a Mitsubishi machine. Mitsubishi was 6.8 metre EPB machine, and going through sand under the city there, doing up into the station, up into the city. That was a great little machine. The Japanese, the Kumagai people, it was the Mitsubishi technicians would come in, with all their hats and chin straps and their woolly gloves, and they'd be, doing all their screws up. And I was going, geez, how can guys work with that stuff? But they did, and they were pushing to get the machine going, like the latent side of it. And the Japanese said, no, it's not ready yet, We're going to, and they just stuck to their guns. And when that machine went into the ground, it never broke down. It never had blown hose. It never had electrical problem. It went from one end to the other, pulled out. I'd gone by then, but then they did the second run and never broke down again from what all the boys told me and that. And it was just, and it did a 90-degree turn in 260 metres, a big machine like that. So, not huge on today's standards, but sort of, light rail machine. And, to do that 90-degree turn in 260 metres, pretty tight turn, all segments and everything else. But, it was a great machine. Yeah, it's some pretty good guys there. Daniel Pierce, he was on my crew, and he was the segment director. Man, we went from about an hour a segment to about, 18 minutes or 11 minutes was the quickest, I think, when Daniel got on there to put a segment up, to finish the ring. So, and then I left. My wife was up from the Central Coast. We had a shop over there, and she came over for a week. And she rings me at work, and she goes, Andy, you got a call from Canada. I'm going, who the hell, what's going on? And she goes, the guy wants to know if you want to go up there and join their team. I said, whereabouts? She said, Vancouver. And I'm going, how the hell, Anyway, I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on, Anyway, she said, I said, what did you say? She said, I told him you're going to come, And he goes, that's good, Shall we ask him? She goes, no, he'll come. And so she said, you got to ring when you get back. So I got back. I rang him up. He said, we got your resume here. And I said, how'd you get my resume? And then I remembered Jason Muscat said to me one day on the PRL, he said, do you want to go to Canada? I said, yeah, place I've always wanted to go. Yeah, send your CV to this, which was about 10, 12 months before. And then all of a sudden it just popped up out of the blue. So I ended up there with Bill Fingerberger. With, of course, Seymour Capilano, Twin Tunnels. They were doing a big filtration plant there, and they were doing a Twin Tunnels to Cleveland Dam, which is about 7 k's away, a little bit over 7 k's into the dam, and then there were Twin Tunnels, and they'd take the water out of the Cleveland Dam, take it back to the filtration plant, filter all the water, then run it back into the town supply. And the town supply was in the wintertime, or when it rained, which it never stopped raining. It rains for 5 months a year over there. And the water was just murky, dirty all the time until the summertime, Then you get all the melt and everything else. And so they were filtering this, and they wanted that done. They wanted that done before the 2010 Winter Olympics. So, so we went in there, and we had two 3.8 Hard Rock Robbins machines. And so when I got there, they had sunk the 200 metre shaft, done the back shunt, done the launch chambers. So we had got down there and we had to do a lot of concreting and stuff like that, prepping everything up, which we did. And then the machines arrived, and then because the launch chambers are supposed to be 200 metres long each, they only made them 50 metres. So, we had, and I think the machines were 220 metres, 230 metres long. So you had to cut a little bit, add a bit of the backup one, and power up the other one, go a little bit there, then add some on there and just chug it along there. So we got going, and the ground was hard. It was like 300 MPa. And if the cutters didn't turn, if you didn't check them, you could wear them right out to the body, right through the body into the shaft. And but yeah, it was hard. It was really hard ground. And I said to the boss, I said, "What's the go with the rock balls?" He said, "Oh no, we're not having rock balls." I said, "What do you mean not having rock balls?" He said, "Oh, you don't need them." And I says, "What?" He said, "They've said that you're only going to need 400 rock bolts, 200 at each end in each tunnel." And then between there's going to be enough. And I said, "Mate, haven't you had a look outside?" And he goes, What do you mean?" I said, "Look how big those mountains are. Look at the gorges, look at the amount of water that's running. And you're telling me there's, you're not going to need rock bolts and you're not going to need pumps and stuff like that. We're going down the way." And I said, "We're in, Canada's got the most water in the world." And he goes, "Do you reckon?" And I said, "Man, we're going to need rock bolts." So anyway, we he said, "I'll ring up Finland and buy some stopers." So I ended up buying these stopers. Said, "How many of them have you got?" They said, "Oh, we got heaps." So we ended up buying 14 of them. Ringing up for another one. "Oh, no, we haven't got any more. We stopped making them." So they sold them all to us. And we had to resurrect these bloody things. But we got through it to about 4 kilometres and we started hitting a bit of bad ground, what they call rock burst. And you probably heard it and seen it too, but we had like 800 metres, 900 metres cover, and the ground was just, we were 4 Ks in and the boys could hear the ground banging on the surface, ringing up, and, it was just like a gun, and the place was just shaking, and we're rock bolting and just chugging along through it, and just make sure we bolted, and it was coming up, falling down around our ears and stuff, but we just kept bolting in and do it, and just a little bit at a time. You can only cut like 300-400 a day. Anyway, the construction manager come down and said, "Oh, you got to stop." So then the project director come down. He goes, "No, carry on." And just backwards and forwards, and but the project manager, he was really concerned about everyone's health and safety and everything else, because man, she was really, you got used to it, but it was really making a hell of a racket, and in the end they finally told us to stop. So I said to the project director, "We can get through it, man. You just got to keep chugging, just take your time, And we had, so one of those photos I sent you, there's a picture of all the boys all laying around there on top there. Well, that was on top of the main beam of the TBM where the fallout was, or part of the fallout was. So we bolted it all up, meshed it all up, and then we got up in there and got a photo. So, but when we sat around for 5 months. In that 5 months, we probably did 2 weeks' work total. And then they just came in one day and they said, "Pack your gear and get out." Confiscated all again. They said, "Oh, our contracts were ended," and I ended up back home in Aussie. So, but yeah, it was a great experience. It was a great place. Good guys, same game, guys that didn't know anything, didn't know a thing, and they sunk a 200 metre, 15 metre by 200 metre shaft, these guys, and they knew nothing, and they shotcreted and got, they had German supervisors that obviously, the way that I heard how they'd done it, like, for instance, the general super said, "We go down and put some rock bolts and do a pull test." So I went, took the gear leg down and got a dolly made up and the chemical and wound the bolt up, went hard like that. And the boys standing there goes, "How do you know how to do that?" I said, "That's how you put a rock bolt in, mate." And they goes, "We never put them in like that." And I goes, "How did you put them in?" He said, "We just drilled a hole we shoved the chemical in, and the Manitous, they called them the Zoom Boom, the one we had. They just put a stick onto the Zoom Boom and just pushed it in and just held it there, and that was it. They never mixed the chemical or anything. And that's how they sunk the shaft. And I'm going, really, man, you guys are kidding me? They goes, nah, that's how we did it. So they didn't know nothing, and then when I got there, I had a crew, had a good foreman too, American guy, but he was brought up in Canada, and he's a young guy, and he was really smart. And then Africa, India, Greenland, Iceland, all tunnelings, all over the place. Yeah, some really, really experienced guys, good guys too. Yeah, so once we got the shop from there, I ended up back in Sydney working for Walter Mining. I think they call them Walter Diversified Services, and then went out, did a little 3 little tunnels at Top Ryde from a big supermarket there to go under the road, a parking station under the road, and I think there were 340 metre drives, 120 metres total. Took 8 months. $15,000 in bonus. And I go, oh yeah, that'll do me, So because it was one of the jobs where tunnelling wasn't the main job. It was, everything else, construction was there, and you just tunnel when we give you the time. So when we were tunnelling, you could go tying steel, or placing concrete, or working there. So I just come home fishing, and asked them if they could just spread my bonus out over the 2 weeks I was away, and they said, yeah, it was no problem. So that's how I got my bonus. We got, I think, 3 lots of 5,000. So it's a good little job, yeah. A little while, then ended up out at Orange at Cadia doing the decline for the conveyor, and I was only there for 6-8 months, and then the mine bought their ship whilst I was in, so there was surplus to requirements, so ended up back in Sydney, and then I ended up starting with Phil up at Truro Street on the airport link. And it was up there, ship passing up there for a fair while up there, I suppose, probably a year. And then Marty Harvey was heading to Hong Kong to work for John Owers and Leighton's, and I said, if there's any vacancies up there, let me know, man. So Johnny, so he took my resume up, and Johnny gave me a call, and so I ended up in Hong Kong for Leighton's, on the XRL 822 project, which was a big tunnel. It was all drill and blast, 13 metre diameter. So we used to set up 2 jumbos side by side. One could reach 13 metres, one T12 could reach 12 metres, T13 could reach 13 metres, and they'd do the crowns, and they'd just drill out and drill up to just the maximum we drilled, I think, was just 6 metres, and fire it all at once. And we had a 988 loading. We got a 988 loader later on. We had 6 40-ton dump trucks. It used to take 4 hours to muck out. And then we'd probably took 3 hours to drill the loader too. We'd come in and do the scaling with the big excavator, 45-ton excavator, and rock boulder with the jumbos, and then shotcrete it up, and then do the same cycle again. Yes, that was a high-speed rail tunnel to China. So it was coming out of Hong Kong to join their main high-speed rail line into China. So it was joining into that line. I was up there for nearly 3 years with John Owers, and Stephen Green was there. He was the other ship boss there, or supervisor there. And then they had some great men, Chinese, some of them were great jumbo operators, good tunnelers, done a lot of work up there, and they knew that ground, and they were really good at it. And I met some good people up there. Great people, great job, my time was coming to an end there, and I said to John Owers, this was about just before Christmas, so John Owers, what's going on in India? Because Leighton's had a job in India, and he said, why do you want to go there? I said, I want to know what's going on, because I had nowhere else to go. And he said, I'll find out for you. So he rang the project director. I can't remember his name. I had it on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, he come over for the job and he goes, you want to go up to India? I said, I wouldn't mind. What's going on? And he goes, just go on the plane, go tonight, And I'm going, what? Just get on the plane and go. And I goes, what about permits and work permits? Nah, you'll be right. Just go there. And I'm going, hell no, I'm not going to do that. So he said, look, I'm going up there. I'm going back to the UK, but I'm going to be there for 5 days and I'll find out what they're going to, if they want you up there, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, he got us a job up there. So me and Mark Aiken, my brother, and old Grimsley, we all went up there. And so we all went up there and worked. So Mark and I were on the Chinani side, and brother and Grimsley were on the Nasri side. So it was 9 Ks through there. So, yeah, that was another big tunnel, same size as Hong Kong. We were using, jumbos and stuff there. But the ground was moving a lot, We went in there, Mark and I, we went in there to, because it was squeezing in, and we had to, bring it back out to profile. And then the concrete form was coming in behind us. And they were just concentrating on the face and benching it, of course, and then they take the bench out and then they shotcrete. But oh man, there was just, the ground was just moving and there was just no real decent rock support. I suppose I'm going to get kicked in the butt for this, but no real bolting regime that I could see. Nothing in the walls, and then we had to come through and jackpick it all out and stand some girders up, And I sort of had a discussion with the tunnel manager about it. I said, mate, what are you putting these things up for? They're useless, You're better off to turn around and put more rock bolts in. Oh, no, they're great. I said, they're useless, man. Look, they're flopping around, And once they set them in with the rock bolts, they were strong. But, mate, in that sort of ground, you needed to get the ground covered a bit quicker than what a scabby or lattice girder was going to do, They're just useless as far as I'm concerned, And all the jobs I've used, lattice girders, and all the engineers and the project managers will tell you they told me they were only there to keep the shape of the tunnel, just so you knew where to shotcrete to. That's all they were good. There was no structural support or anything. And but we really needed a real good bolting regime, and so we were up there. I was up there about 8 months, and then all of a sudden government said, "No, you're out here, get out Leighton." So ended up back home in New Zealand. But yeah, there was some pretty trying times there, mate. There was some good men, real good men. A lot of the guys, poverty was one thing that struck me there, The real poverty. I think our highest paid on the job was a jumbo operator, and he was on $7 US a day, and the lowest paid was under $1 a day. And we're using weld hunks of bolts together for a hammer and all this and that. And I said to the tunnel manager, I said, "What's the go, mate? Why don't we just get them some decent hammers for the gear?" So, mate, we've bought heaps of gear, and he said, as soon as it comes, it gets stolen and taken away. And then they just weld all the bolts together and make a hammer out of it. I said, oh, yes. If it wasn't nailed down, it was gone, And guys would turn up in jandals and thongs, sandals, have a hat on, and 95% of them were Muslim. But they were good people. They were great people, just so poor and, struggling to survive, But we had some really good men there too, some really good jumbo operators. You're looking, well, here's some guys in Aussie getting $1,000 a shift, $1,500 a shift, and, these guys were as good, and they were on $7 a day, So, but yeah, I had a guy working for me, old Christian Pariha, and he was a foreman. I made him the foreman, so I had four gangs under me, and he just kept an eye on the boys, and because he knew the language and he knew English, and he was a smart guy, man. He had it all sussed, and pretty good guy. Yeah, sort of guy you could take anywhere. Very smart. And you get those guys everywhere, don't you? Every job we got these outstanding guys. Yeah. So when that was all over, I ended up coming back to New Zealand and bought a house here, and was doing some work around the place, and was having a good old time. And Steve Green, he come back to work for Haka, pipe checking. He rings me up after about 7 months, do you want a job? I'm like, well, not really, but I, sort of need the money. So ended up there, and I was with them until, that was 2015, so I was with them until last year. Pipe checking, sinking little shafts and stuff, and little TBMs, hand diggers, and sort of opened my eyes to the pipe checking, especially in this country. I've never done any anywhere else, but we had big guys, man, big Tongan guys that are like 6 foot and weighing about 18 ton, big guys in those little meter pipes, shoveling, mate. And, unbelievable how these big guys could get in there. And they loved it, man, and they were really good at it too. They could steer the pipe, it's really good guys, yeah. And they had a good crew there, and then they got taken over. Then they got taken over again. I think Abergeldy from Australia ended up buying them. And they were in that Central Interceptor job up in Auckland, that big sewage job. But then I got laid off. I was surplus to requirements again, so I got laid off, and then I was mucking around here. I was having a bit of a holiday, and then John Owen's son, David Owens, down south, sinking a shaft for a little company called Parfit Construction at Lake Tekapo on a downer job. So he had let us A-grade tunnel manager's ticket lapse. So he was in the process of getting it, so they needed someone to fill in for a couple of months. So I went down there until this COVID thing came in. So I'm actually due to go back tomorrow, just because there's been a lot of delays with the COVID, so they haven't got back to today for his A-grade. So I'm going to go down there for a couple of months if he doesn't get it before then. So sinking like about a 13, 14 metre shaft, 20 metres, and into an old Tekapo A tunnel that took water from the Lake Tekapo down through this tunnel into a power station. And so we had to break into this tunnel, sink the shaft, break into this tunnel, put a big stint in there, and with gates and that and control room and everything. So they've got the stint in now. They've done that because they've been working through the COVID. And so they've got that there now. And yes, I'll go back tomorrow because they need the A-grade because the COVID's been lifted. So, and we'll just do concreting and everything else until we come out of the binding rigs, and then I'll be surplus to requirements again. So, yeah. So that's about it, mate. If I haven't bored you for so much,
mate. No, this is great. And I knew a little bit about your stuff, and obviously knowing you for so long as well. But filling us in on 43 years, wow, it's unreal. Well, some of the jobs that jumped out, and I took some notes while I was listening to you as well, that I'll hit you up about. Yeah, but I suppose, cool. Andy, like for sure, for me, it's probably that first job. When you started, you did touch on it a little bit and what your role was, and a bit of annoying, being a bit of a whore to get down the hole, which was, I suppose, part and parcel of what it's like to get down there. Eh? You sort of have to be keen and very proactive.
Yeah.
But your sort of your thoughts and your take on your first job and what it was like for you. What was your initial thoughts when you were able to go on shift or even go down the hole?
Yeah, mate. Look, I'd never ever seen an environment like it or anything that But I guess I just fell in love with it, man. It was for me, and I couldn't get enough of it, And just everything's so new and totally different to what I'd been used to. And it was just a passion that I developed, and had it for years and years and years, and couldn't get enough of it, just seeing all this big machinery and all this different stuff and how things work, I had the pleasure of working for a guy, Bimbo Teheko. He was our overseer, and he'd been first Manapuri. He'd worked in the Waitaki River, Kaimai, probably other jobs too that Bim had been in for years. And I think his name was actually Kimbo. Yeah, we used to call him Bimbo. And then Ted Napier, worked with Ted for a few weeks with him, and everyone didn't like old Ted because they reckon he was a slave driver and blah, blah, blah. But I found Ted really good. He'd help you out. If you wanted to know something, mate, he just used to say to you, ask the question, man. You ain't going to learn anything if you don't ask the question. He said, you're married, He said, you're mischief. See that machine over there? Learn how to drive it. Find out what that bar is. Why do they use this? He said, be inquisitive, man. If you're not going to ask, you're not going to learn anything. Get into it, And he was a great guy, old Ted. And he was one of him and I think he said him and Pat Hayes, they were the first Maori tunnellers in New Zealand. I think they started in Rimataka Tunnel. And the Rimataka Tunnels back in whenever that was, 40s, whenever it was, yeah. So, yeah, old Ted, and I spoke to Bimbo about Ted, and he said, mate, that guy's a quiet guy. He just unassuming, and he's standing there with a watch, time everything, Just to time everything, how long everything took. And he said, that guy, man, he said, when you get into bad ground, he said, that's when you see that guy come into his own, So I seen him up a whole way up and whole stacking timber, and she'd fall in. He said, he'd be coming down head first sideways, and he'd hit the ground, and he'd be straight back up there, handing timber up there, trying to secure the ground. And he had a lot of time for Ted. He taught me a few things for the short time I knew him. And when the Port Royal Tunnel finished, I think he only lasted about another 5-6 years. Not quite sure exactly, but I heard he had died. I suppose he was getting on too, And but yeah, he was a good guy, and Sid Tour and fellas like that had been around for a few years. And Ray Carter, have you ever run into Ray Carter?
Oh, not yet, but I'm wanting to get him on. Yeah, I'll get in contact. There's a few names that are popping up. A lot of people are saying I should get guys like that in that generation on, which is exactly what I want to do, to be honest. So yeah, I'll hit him up soon. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, Ray was there at Port Royal, but he was a Deep Cove guy, Deep Cove man from first Manapuri job, Kaiwai, all over the place, and he played footy with us. We were young dudes, and he was the old man in the team. He was about 32, I guess. And yeah, so now Ray, then I caught up with Ray at Algas. Hadn't seen him from 77, 78 to, when was that? 97 or something.
Mm.
And he says to me, boy, where are you from back home? I said, the same place as you. And he goes, where's that? I said, Port Royal Tunnel. Yeah, boy, he goes, hey, and he didn't remember me. But, I worked for him on a shift, and we'd have a bit of a yarn about the job and that. I remember one day, this guy, Kerry O'Rourke, he said, they used to call Ray Wanker. He said, that Wanker Carter? He goes, what? He says, the road was stuck one day, and he goes, come here, boy, come here. And I'll Kerry running, help me push this thing out, And Kerry reckons he had his shoulder into the road, and he's pushing the way there. He goes, hey, man. He said, I really thought I was going to move that thing, And Ray's just standing back laughing the way there, Yeah.
Give us a hand with this one, you reckon?
Yeah. And another one, old Ray, where there's a guy there, old Morgman, old Merv Turner, one of the local guys. Anyway, Carter turns around and says to Morg, go outside, get a sugar bag and put 50 dogs into the sugar bag. And old Morgman looks at him and sideways, and he goes, what? He said, get 50 dogs, put them in a sugar bag and bring them up here. And old bloody Morgman goes, you can't get 50 dogs in a sugar bag. He said, of course you can, you idiot. Go and get the bloody things, And he goes, no. And he goes, what's wrong? He says, you can't get 50 dogs in a sugar bag. And he goes, why not? And Murph says, Morgman turns around and says, because they'll suffocate, And old Carter goes, he just shook his head and walks away, Yeah. Little stories, you don't forget,
No. Hey, I want to hear you up about Clyde. Now, you touched on it, the stabilisation work. Now, growing up in Cromwell and having an interest in the work later, tunnelling, but going to work with Dad and the old man. I was actually going to call this, and I'll tell you straight up, let's talk shop. But when I said that and was talking about calling it or giving it the name Let's Talk Shop, a lot of this generation didn't understand it.
True.
But I know Dad was good at talking shop. You know, he was one of the best. So I thought, but I used to listen to the stories of Cromwell. But I'd like your side of Clyde, please, if that's all right. You know, especially you said, you know, you had a series of tunnels right along that gorge. Now that gorge would have been what, 30, 40K long, is it?
Oh, maybe 20, maybe 20.
Righto. So when you say a series of tunnels, they didn't link, They were just straight in, and then you made drilling chambers to be able to drill in further. So just an explanation on that, please, if possible.
Yeah, well, actually, when I first started there for Downers, they'd been going a while, but we had, I was at 9 Mile. There was 2 tunnels. There was Old 9 Mile and 9 Mile. The Old 9 Mile, Vern Swan was in charge, and the Old 9 Mile had collapsed. And Swanee used to say to the boys, you know, don't worry, you're going to have plenty of work here, you know. And so Eddie Tay, he was on the mucker from what the boys were telling me. He was driving a little rock shovel. And he said, and they were squeezing in that, you know, that fast and hard that the floors were heaving and pushing the rail up, that he actually had, when he had to swing the bucket back over to load into the skip, he had to go between the sets because he would hit the sets. Anyway,
just from the ground lifting, you mean?
So yeah, heaving and squeezing, yeah. So what started off in the day as a normal size drive ended up being probably 2 foot higher than what it should have been, you know, just rising up. So, yeah, so then Swanee pulled them out and said, come on, let's get out, and then it collapsed. So then they started the new 9 Mile, and they were probably in couple hundred metres. Then I started with Bob Techie's crew, and that linked up down to the Orchard Tunnel. The Orchard Tunnel went down to Rabbit Creek, which was further down. So those 3 linked up. It was probably 5 or 6 Ks down through there, but there was all little drill chambers all the way along that, you know, you had your drives and they all linked up. So then they just aim these drill rods out to these artesian wells and drain the water out of the hills. Yeah. So
what interested me was the method you guys used, and you did say, was there a road header there or a TBM they did use? But a lot of it was air leg, wasn't it, or handheld?
Yeah, 90% was, no, probably more than 90%. Yeah, they had a little road header there. I forget, there was a little Alpine that Downers had and brought it down, and then they had a single boom, little jumbo there. Murray Pure was used to operate it, and I think Wayne Green too. Or Greeny, he operated it as well. But most of it was all air legs. And, yeah, just handheld stuff, yeah. Sets when it was bad and rock bolts when it wasn't, and no bolts at all when it was real good, you know.
Yeah.